Hi, everybody. I'm not going to steal Ted's phrase, so we're just going to leave that to the side. But this is RFK Refugees, the podcast, the visual medium of the podcast. And with me, I have a guy you have heard of. You maybe have not seen him on a video podcast because that's not something he usually does. But Travis Clark of Top Drawer Soccer, a T-shirt which he is wearing that you will see as he. There you go, Travis. Thanks for joining me on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. Hope I can do justice in Ted's absence.
We will find out. It's going to be a test. Everybody, let us know in the chat. Give us what F in the chat for I don't know what it is. I'm not old. I'm too old. Speaking of too old, twitch.tv/RFK Refugees. If you're watching us there, really appreciate it. If you're not watching us there, if you're listening to this podcast the next day like a normal person and not engaging with us on chat, what are you doing? You should be here on Monday night. And you should be subscribing to our podcast and subscribing to us on Twitch, which I will get to soon. But we have some soccer to talk about. We have actually a lot of soccer to talk about.
3 games, 4. If you want to throw in a Loud and United game, I didn't watch.
We don't. I'm a firm no Loud United conversation. That's my rule. We have great and awesome guest writers who help us on the website with some gamers, but I have a firm no talking about a team with 2 wins, our last place in the league over like 3 years. That's like that's my bar. So we're gonna hold off. I think when they're gonna be more competitive is when they're in this new MLS Reserve League. Maybe that's my hope.
The league that MLS launches, so they can just save more money and be cheap. That's how I see it.
Well, I think that's how they see it too. I think everybody wants that.
Well, I mean, it's not that only. They want control, and they don't want USL capitalizing off the media they're creating. They want to say, hey, you can watch 100 reserve games as well. Here at ESPN, pay us an extra $1 million or whatever.
I think ESPN Plus will give MLS another $25 for the rights to broadcast the development league.
It would be generally interesting to have that debate and see how you could quantify how much money you could charge for that. Because how many people would watch that? 10? Me?
All their dads. Everyone's dad and
families.
Mom.
I know all about that.
Yeah, that's right. I think Travis probably would be required to subscribe in some way. It would be a business expense. But we didn't talk about Chicago Fire last week, the game that almost completely escaped my mind as I had such good vibes from this weekend.
Let the record show that I had to remind John there was another game, and he's the one who's the DC United fan wearing the DC United jersey.
Travis is illegally displaying the sausage, how this show is being made and telling you what actually happened. It's a strike against. I also don't even think I do have it right now. All right, so Chicago Fire 2-2. A game that was interesting in the way that Hernan Losada sort of interpreted it after the fact. A road game which he expected, or maybe fans expected, that this was going to be a walk. The lineup, not necessarily. There was enough injuries. I think that was sort of not maybe shouldn't have been a lock. First game starting with 2 strikers in the lineup from the start. That's never been. I think they've gotten maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Either because of injury or just a lack of wanting to play that formation. But they instead got a point on the road. Travis, big picture thoughts on a game against the Chicago Fire. That
anytime you come from behind, it's positive, right? You're down 2-0. I think Kevin Paredes wasn't supposed to play, but then it ended up being available. He had picked up a knock while with a training with the U.S. national team, and then ends up being available, coming in off the bench. And he grabs a goal, makes it 2-1. And then Andy Nahar, who's ageless and makes me feel like I'm 10 years younger because I was covering DC United when he was breaking through. I think, was it 2011, 2012?
I remember watching a reserve game, or I was reserve game, which dates me right there. But it might have been like a practice game inside of RFK on like a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. A time where I had the bandwidth and time and nothing else to do except to see that game. It was great. Andy's entire entire family is there watching the game from the lower bowl, like sitting where the bar sits. And it feels like not that long ago, but in reality, I think it's now officially 100 years ago. But yes,
that was quite the tangent from him winning a penalty too.
Yeah.
Although I said us on that was my fault.
You did. But I had to wax poetic about being old and seeing a practice game at 10 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah, I still think that, he was up in the box, he wins the penalty. And I remember when Nahar signed with DC, returned back to the league this year. And I was thinking, I remember hearing about his injury problems. One story I had heard several years ago, he was on the cusp of making a move from Anderlecht to a Spanish club, and that it was like that game he tore his ACL and the move was scrubbed because it had been signed. So
That's a
he's had
monkey's paw
some,
situation for him. That's a very, very bad break.
yeah,
My last day at work before I retire from the force type thing.
yeah. So, he's had some, and I think even just seeing his resurgence with DC, but not even as a right back, but as a right center back. Well, right, what do you call it? Right center back on a 3-man back line. Which makes sense. We've seen that sort of style evolve a little bit. We're playing a little bit more of an athletic, less center back type along a 3-man back line. Think like Kyle Walker comes to mind with the English national team. Not that I'm saying Andy Najar is Kyle Walker, but that sort of role as I've seen. I like your keeping a laugh in there, but
no, I like it. I love him to be Kyle Walker. That would be I am in the bag big time for Andy Najar. So that would be, I don't want him, I'm sure you've seen the recent transfer speculation back to Portugal, back to Belgium, is rumored, sort of a situation where he's on because he's been so injured and because this was very much like a make right deal for him here at DC United. It would not take much. He's not on great money right now. So that's something to watch, particularly if you're,
because I assume he's on probably a short-term deal as well for just 1 year.
Yep. I think there's a team option for the next year.
I actually hadn't even caught all of that rumors, but needless to say, he's up there in the box. He makes something happen. I believe it was Jonathan Bornstein that hacks him down.
It was
nowhere near the ball, and then says, like, makes the universal gesture at him, like, "Oh, he dove," and you're like, really? The other notable takeaway from that was the crowd at Chicago Soldier Field being about 6,000 people, and you're like, really? All of that? Not that I'm here to drag the fire, but it's just, makes you wonder.
6,000 people in Soldier Field. I think 2,500 people at Red Bull Arena for New York City FC.
Yeah,
weekend.
Not a great week for MLS in the attendance column.
They will not be reporting that one on the MLS Comms Twitter page. They will not be.
They did post both numbers on the league website, though. I did notice that. Someone pointed that out.
They should have not done that. They should have just been like, no data available. Do not check the records on this.
Yeah, but big picture, you come away from that position with a point, with Red Bulls on the horizon, with the injury tally piling up. And I'm curious to hear your perspective on that, John. I'm sure you've talked about that a lot, but do you think that, that's the injury issue is like part of the coach's approach to playing, or is it just bad luck, or what have you been able to glean from it?
I don't think it's originally the conversation was all about training, right? Particularly as the season started, it was like, look at the bodies piling up. The reputation around Losada is that, is doing 2-a-days. Everyone is eating radish salads, and they're all sleeping 19 hours a day.
They're all overweight.
Yeah. I asked them if that BMI story that Pablo dropped about the fact that he's put everybody's number up on the wall in a meeting is true, and it confirmed it was true. Kevin said that did actually happen. So that's not fun. But yeah, I think it is part to do with the way he plays. I think the full court press, as long as you can possibly to manage it, particularly for the forwards, I think inevitably we're going to cause you to break down. Particularly, these are all players that he did not choose. Maybe we're not chosen for this style of play, and he's trying to make work. And some of them are doing well. Some of them are adapting. But I think you're going to see body failures of players who never intended to run this much or play this way, and who are having to do so, and doing okay at it. But I think that's part of it. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. That's what I think about a lot when I watch DC United. I don't watch every game like you guys do, but when I do catch them, just because Losada to me is interesting, with actual ideas and style, and even if it brings some kind of controversy, not controversies, but some kind of collateral damage with it, whether or not he has the actual, like, can he actually build the roster himself? You have Dave Casper there bringing in these guys. You brought in Roberta from somewhere in Eastern Europe. I can't.
Sofia, I forget. It's Bulgaria.
And your big money signing is Edison Flores, and he's like, and that's like way before Losada is even there. He obviously is on many big money guaranteed deal, and that's not to say he can't fit into the experience, but the issue with that will be also worth following once he actually can play, and to kind of push it back against the style of play, like even the sequence leading up to the goal the penalty kick that Nahar won against the Fire, like DC strung some passes together, and you're like, you contrast that with what we saw against Red Bulls, and part of that is the styles matching up, and the Red Bulls aren't giving anyone time to play. But it was a reminder that DC can actually pass the ball around when, I think the Red Bull game was up. It was not totally atypical, but it was a little bit of a, kind of two rocks smacking against each other over and over again, and then each rock kicking each other repeatedly.
Yeah, I think there are moments in not every game, but most of these games where there's, a 10-15 minute spell where they're playing
soccer.
They're playing soccer, right? And that has not always been the case. In the past, you were thinking that, these are just 11 donkeys out there with that they're getting points, but it's never going to be pretty. And the thing here is now he's still playing with other people's ingredients, and it's still at times very attractive soccer. It's not yet, I think, to the point when he signed, he was talking about wanting to be all of the neutral fans' favorite team to watch. We're not there yet. I think we're many steps from getting there. But I think that's a decent thing to be shooting for, particularly as a.
Yeah, I mean, they've had some games where I've flipped it on, and it's it's actually ironically been some of the games they've lost too. I think it was Orlando. They lost 1-0, and they just kept getting the ball into the box, getting shots that they just couldn't finish to save their lives. And it's from my perspective, from my background, having covered Drew Skundrich, seeing his second life has been a lot surprising, especially his role like this past game where
we'll get into that for sure. That was a interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, he's actually a guy, he played at Stanford, which was very much a I wouldn't say similar style, but kind of close as when you compare like college soccer to obviously it's a little bit different because you rotate players in when you're pressing and all that. But Skundrich is a guy who could fit that style of play. Not someone I would put closer up the field like that, but he knows how to run, even if it's not always to the right spot.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. I was there with my friend Nancy and just trying to figure out why is he playing in that particular location. Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I think closing up on the Chicago game, Hernan used this is now a common refrain in post-game conferences to say we created 900,000 chances. We should have finished all of them. We did not. We really needed a forward that can finish those chances. I think in this game was the one where he made the comment, I don't have that player. I need that player to appear either on the team or in another way. That's a paraphrase, but basically he was saying it could be somebody on the team, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think we're going to get that. So he's now sounding a little bit of the alarm on that, particularly as the bodies continue to pile up. Yeah, we'll talk about that after the New York game. Like, maybe you're calling Kai Kamara, calling somebody that will play for the veteran minimum, who's you don't have to pay a transfer fee or trade any asset for, just to have a human body, I think might be the way they go. Unknown for sure. But like you said,
what about Eric Sorga? Eric Sorga is not the answer.
Eric Sorga is not the answer to any question, except for like, I think he is selling, he's like hawking Estonian snacks on his Instagram with which I think is cool. Good for him. Supplement that money. But closing out Chicago, point on the road, not what you wanted coming in, but like you said, anytime you're coming back from 2 goals down to get a point, you have to be at least somewhat pleased with it. Let's talk about the game that happened most recently on Sunday night. I kept calling it Saturday when I was there because days have no meaning anymore. But conservative lineup to start. I think that was sort of the surprise when everyone saw the lineup. 2 defensive midfielders with Drew Skundrich on top of that, which is what we sort of got into, like not your normal number 10, sort of in an 8 role where he was shuttling back and forth, but was getting very close to goal. Kevin Paredes up top, basically, with Ola Kamara. They played, in the beginning of that game, I think that they, the press from the start was effective as per usual, but it always seemed like they were missing that third piece that is normally up there, that normally helps them actually put get one of their right backs or the left back into a dangerous spot where they make a stupid pass and it gets intercepted. The challenge there was Drew was either too far or wasn't effective in the press, or Joseph Mora was the other sort of player doing that, and he's very conservative about getting forward. But overall, I mean, they played it tight, and I think you alluded to it before. New York not in the mood to let people play. This was always going to be not This was never going to be a game you'd want to watch on TV as a neutral, probably.
Yeah, whenever DC plays Philadelphia or Red Bulls, can just the way the teams both are trying to set up, and at least what I know of Losada and what I know of those teams, it's never going to. It's kind of funny how he's bringing this style when he wants to have neutrals come in and play, but I think you can, sometimes see that. And I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways, I know we're going to go through a little bit more detail, is just how important Julian Gressel is, because he's, putting the ball on the platter, and you're seeing why he was coveted from Atlanta United. And when you watch Atlanta United now, you wonder why they were so unwilling to pay him not an insane amount of money.
Nope.
No, I mean, he's on he makes a good amount of money in the United States of America, but like, and then you watch what Atlanta's been doing of late. They're on their fourth or fifth coach, and things have gone south fast. And I think getting Gressel and Areola, that's all. When I knew those two were coming here, getting them in sync and working in the same way, I think will be huge for the team down the stretch. And just along with that, keeping those two healthy for sure.
Particularly as I think Hernan's shopping list is going to go unheated. So he really hopes those players stay healthy. I think a quick aside there on Gressel, I think there are some Atlanta fans that are projecting a little bit and pretending that they're okay with Brooks Lennon in that spot. Like, well, what's Julian Gressel really doing? I don't know. Who really cares? And if you look at Julian Gressel's expected assists, which is a stat, I had heard of expected goals. I should have assumed that there was an expected assist, but I've never, ever seen it mentioned in any of the things that I read normally. He is a second in the league with that.
Yeah, so, I was looking through his numbers too. He had 5 key passes from this game, which, I'm not even 100% sure what key pass metric measures.
So it's part of the Audi index, I think. That's an inside joke for people who are not. Most people won't get that. Go ahead.
But the number that people can understand is he's by far the way the team's leader in chances created. And I know part of that is the fact that he takes set pieces, and you get a shot on target, that's a chance created. But regardless, he's a very important player, and you saw that on the team's goal. And it should have been a second goal. Was that Paredes, that header that?
I believe it was Alfaro from the notes that I was looking at. Was
okay,
but I didn't write that down.
Either way, he should have had another assist at least.
Yeah, 3 assists at half. So 27th minute, the first goal that was alluded to. Gressel does a Andy Sullivan like step, anticipating a ball coming back out of the back line, cuts it off. By the way, I don't have his miles or his kilometers run or whatever we're in America, so miles run. He was up and down the entire game, but in this situation, he intercepts the pass, plays into Ola I think Ola finishes from maybe like 8 yards out, goes crazy, goes over to celebrate with Julian in the corner. Really, we talk about Ola a lot on this podcast.
Is it nice things?
Good and bad.
Okay.
Good and bad. I think he is extremely efficient. You cannot doubt his efficiency. He's got the second most goals in MLS per 90. He's not had as many minutes on the field as he'd like, but when he is on, he scores. He scores all of the penalty kicks. I think that sort of maybe bumps up your numbers. A Jaime Moreno late career-esque goals per 90 situation maybe, but he finished that one. No, that was no problem there. Unfortunately, things went a little awry in the 40th minute. He's fouled. His tooth flies out. He cuts his tongue. I think he had just been hit in the head, maybe like five minutes before that. He was having a very rough go of it from a physical perspective. Whether or not that affected his decision making in the 45th minute,
where that was
Gressel's ball there was much better. Gressel's ball there was 10 out of 10, A+. And I was actually sitting in 133, so the pass was coming right towards me, so I could see the curve on it. It was just perfectly placed. And then Ola takes maybe 37 touches when he could have taken 2. I don't know if he was trying to get it on a preferred foot. Maybe he was. Yeah. Gets overtaken, no goal.
I was surprised that he had 7 goals when I looked at his stats. I was like, doing some prep. I should at least know who the leading scorer of the team is, right? Ole Kamara, 7 goals. That's way more than I would expect. I don't know why that is way more than I would expect, but
I think there's especially 3 penalties in that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's inflated a little bit in that regard. Yeah, so that should have been a certain goal, but I mean, a hat trick of assists should have been well within reach for Gressel. Whoever the Alfaro Paredes
That's right,
mysterious
mystery
man.
mystery screwer up of chance.
Well, that was the harder chance. Kamara definitely should have found a way to at least get a shot on target, even if the goalkeeper makes the saves. You tip your hat to him, but you shouldn't dawdle on the ball and let the defender catch up to you and knock the ball away. So
this was a FIFA walk the ball in the net type of scenario that he could have. That's sort of where he was at.
Well, maybe not that quite easy.
Well, right, but
because there was another defender.
A hard chance. Yeah, but I mean, in FIFA, you have your skill moves. You have five-star skill move to the right, just walked in. Could have happened. Anyway, after that, so I made a comment that on Twitter people did not agree with. Some people didn't agree with that. Ola Kamara, and I agree. His confidence after his goal was very high, because why would it not be? And he's got the most goals on the team. He's got 7 goals. He's literally he's golden boot. Yeah, he is the own goal of 2021 for DC United. But after that play, after he got his bell rung, after his 2 flew out, after he should have scored a second goal, I think, and I haven't got a chance to go back and look because, I had to watch the Spirit game and I have a job, but it very much seemed like he was about 0-5 or 0-6 on his passing after that. He was subbed at halftime, not because of the 0-5 or 0-6. I think probably because his 2 flew out and they were trying to figure out if maybe we should not have him in the game anymore. But I was interested to see how it was going to go for the rest of the game, because he was like talking to himself the rest of stoppage time after he missed that chance, because he knew he should have gotten it. And players that even guys with 7 goals, he would expect to have more than 7 goals. Probably, I think he's the second or third in the league for, I think producer Brian looked this up earlier, but like the difference between expected.
The recording has stopped.
Sorry about that, everybody. I think
I think my house might have been struck by lightning. It's hard to say. There was a loud noise, and then everything went black. So now I'm going to be doing the show from my phone. Producer Brian, if you could also make sure that the stream is still recording, so we can later turn this into an actual podcast. Where were we when my world ended, Travis?
We were talking about Oli Kamara's tooth.
Yeah, and how the. Now I remember. Yeah. So either way, he certainly would have liked to have gotten back on, I think, in the second half and maybe, finished another one of Gressel's a couple different chances. But the second half got a little bit tighter. I don't think there were as many real opportunities throughout and in fact, I think we have it here. No shots, but DC United shut down the Red Bulls entirely in the first half, allowed no shots, one shot all game. So it was really, for all of that, I got to say, in the stands watching the game, it felt very tense, especially the last 20 minutes. Like there was DC United lost Kevin Paredes to injury, lost Nigel Robertha to injury. You had Jordi Reyna playing as the number 9, which is not something you really want to see, really, generally, based on the way he's played for DC United, unfortunately. But you might be seeing more of that, particularly if Nigel Robertha has a groin injury that looked as bad as it actually was. But the second half, any big takeaways from the second half of this very physical and ugly game? We can talk about Drew Skundrich.
I think, maybe you can have Drew Skundrich as your 9, right? That'd be something else. Get him even closer to goal. I think the incessant fouls almost made it, I don't want to say it was unwatchable, but it was just, I think at one point, Fred Briant got kicked in the face by a Red Bulls attacker who I don't believe even got a yellow card, which it was completely incidental, but still, I feel like he could have at least shown a card there. Maybe I was wrong and I missed that, but no, seeing Paredes limp off, he obviously had a knock at some point with the US, and you're probably just going to be sweating on his fitness, and then to have your striker who subbed in to replace your other striker who had his face broke open, that's not good. But hey, I think getting the 3 points against your rivals, shutting them down totally is something that, when you have, Tony Alfaro, Fred Briant, and Andy Nahar as your 3 center backs, it's something to write home about. It's, for a team that has, as we kind of talked about a little bit, plays a little bit chaotic, we can play a little bit at times. Getting results, I think, is important, especially for the group to buy into what the coach is trying to get across to them, even as what he is trying to get across to them may be causing all of these injuries as well.
Aaron, I think that it's very strange. It's similar to the Washington Spirit dynamic in that Trinity Rodman or Ashley Sanchez, two of the youngest players on the team, are unavailable. You're like, I don't know, we're getting 3 points. Kevin Paredes has become very quickly an integral part of their offensive ability. I think it's very visible when he's missing. I think probably because of Paul Arriola not being around, and also maybe I don't want to say lack of talent, but there's injuries in the attacking part of the field, and he's got speed and technical ability that the players who are filling in for those spots do not have. So hopefully that's a short-term injury for him, maybe only missing maybe no games, but I would, our luck is good. I'm sure there will be something steer on that. Let's go back on Drew. So Drew was, you've seen Drew Stanford. I don't know if you watched him in his one season. I'm not, you saw connoisseur as playing in Sacramento. I know he was a key player for them. I know Loudoun United were very excited to have him, and then got him for exactly no minutes. When Hernan got to train with him and was like, I like this guy. He doesn't I think he likes him because he doesn't make mistakes. He runs hard. Yeah. And he's not going to make a pass that unlocks a defense, but he's also not going to make a pass that turns the ball over and has a counterattack really running the other way. That's my quick read on him. What do we do about him?
That's kind of a lot of what Stanford did so well when he was there, when they won. I don't know if he was there for all 3 of their national championships, but he was a big part of it. He was a deep lying midfielder. He had a little bit more freedom to pass, but it's not like he was creating a whole lot either in that role. But what Stanford did so well was, sit in, defend really well, take their chances, but they didn't make mistakes, and they waited for other teams to make mistakes. And I think that, when you look at the way Hernan wants to try to play, that someone like Drew Skundrich can definitely be a solid, back of the end of the roster player. And then obviously, it's a benefit because he gets to live in the same city as his wife, not all the way across the country. So I think he was pretty good at the Republic as well. I didn't watch a whole lot of West Coast USL, but I believe he had a pretty good
like those
run
10
for
p.m.
them.
Eastern starts.
Not when my kids get up at
Yeah.
5:30 every day.
I think that right. So that's a non-starter for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think other than my conversation about what he was doing with the press and sort of being pulled in between those two demands. So normally he's expected to not be that close to goal, to do the defensive work and to press and create turnovers and then hand the ball over to more offensively minded players. He was forced into a role where I think they were expecting.
I think you're on mute.
And I'm on mute. I was saying that I'm broadcasting to the inside of the tornado. I think we're not going to make it to the entire episode here, and I'm frozen, I think. But Drew Skundrich played 90 minutes after being injured for, I think, 2 months with a meniscus, having no opportunity to sort of ramp up his play, and plays a full 90 when is required. So, it's fun to make fun of his limitations, but he did a good job and filled the role. Let's talk about. I'm going to let you mostly talk since I am.
Sure.
Again, in a tornado. Julian Gressel, man of the match, almost scores the Wayne Rooney from midfield around in extra time, and basically ran the entire game. Did a Paul Arriola light level of, I'm going to inspire this team by not giving up any plays, just running, lung busting the entire time, and then also making some technically proficient passes. What did you see about him, and as far as this is sort of the player they were hoping they were going to get from Atlanta?
Yeah, exactly. That I think we talked a little bit about that, and it underscores when Gressel's on, he can be such a huge player. I do think they need to make sure there's enough pieces around him. We talked a little bit about that too, where if he's passing it to guys in the box that aren't making good decisions or aren't passing, or not finishing like Kamara did. I think that finding that balance between, okay, how do you fit Paul in? How do you fit Julian in? I think maybe Paul could be in the Drew Skundrich role and find a similar amount of success. Or I just call it something the Drew Skundrich role, which amuses me. But but no, if you can, because we saw Gressel play so well with Atlanta when they were playing in a 3-back. So I think that could be a really key place for. The way the style of play could be a really good fit for a big second half for Gressel. And, if Edison Flores can thrive, then maybe something similar could happen with the team going forward, because that's going to really impact the way things are. Sorry, there's a lot of videos going around me, and it's really throwing me off.
Sorry.
There we go. We're back to it. Producer Brian is having to rejigger the video as we go. I hope that is the last time I'm going to have to broadcast a live podcast from my phone with no Wi-Fi, which is what I was just doing there. So yes, the Drew Skundrich role is one that we're going to have to fill going forward. Edison Flores.
I'm just glad I was on this podcast and I have invented that term for you guys to use.
No, we're going to use that probably every week. Other things that of note of this game, the style of play, not among them. Bill Hamid with his 4th clean sheet of the year, 74th of his career, which is 9th most all time in MLS. Again, if you want something that makes you feel old, it's
Bill seems like he should be 40, and then I look at how old he is, and I'm like, oh,
yep.
Because I remember, back in the day when I was around RFK, a couple of times you run across him, and when he was a teenager, and now he's not a teenager. So again, I think he's somebody that was critical. Getting Birnbaum, back into form. I know that he hasn't seen much time on the field. He's been fighting injuries. You have the depth if you're Losada to stick with this 3-man backline. I think it's more about keeping guys healthy and making it work offensively. And if you can't bring in other players, which let's be honest, there are limitations to that. That's probably not happening. You need to find a way to make it work in the final third, because I think that they can be solid enough. They can be difficult to play, even if they do give up some. The goals they gave up, especially against Chicago, they were a little bit unlucky. One was like a deflected shot that Hamid had covered, but
Yep.
was knocked into the net by Nahar. So I think that you're not going to learn a ton from the Rebels game just because of the way the styles clash. You just want to grind that out. You want to get that result. And that's why I think the game turned into what it was. Not to mention the fact that the Rebels, as I was watching it towards the end, you're just kind of flipping through and you're like, why do they just keep kicking each other? And the only time the camera would be still was then when you would have zoomed in on the ref who had called a foul and was like getting ready for the restart. So it was not a game for the purists, but a lot of the games between these two teams nowadays are not.
Do you think something you said about we're reflecting on the fact that there are unlikely to be a little player additions this window, and maybe I don't know what the next window looks like either. Hopefully, at least that's a little different. Do you see this coach having a similar situation of Matias Almeida in San Jose, where every offseason it's like maybe somebody else is looking after him, like, oh, we'll bankroll you. We've seen what you've been able to do with DC United, making them at least watchable with creating not really buying anybody else. Do you think DC United is any sort of threat about having the attention on Hernan and maybe having him leave before his 3-year deal is up, particularly if they don't bankroll him?
It could certainly be if he feels like he's not supported. I feel like that's hard to know because then does he feel like he has other opportunities? Like if something comes across his plate, I think maybe he would be more inclined to pursue something like that. Whereas if he gets some support and get some players in, that's going to be really fascinating. I didn't even think about that, but I think the Almeida thing, I think there's a little bit more because Almeida is very much, he's all about the man marking. And I think that's even more demanding than what Lozada is trying to do. So I think that you are going to be able to find more players that can impact the game. And I don't really know what it would take. You probably need a striker, a midfielder, maybe a better defender. And you're looking at a big upgrade, but
that's what he wanted. He wanted one from every line. And he technically got that, but I don't think the players he got were the ones he was expecting necessarily. I think, although Andy Nahar has somehow become an irreplaceable cog for this team, which
he's Kyle Walker of DC United.
There you go. There you go. I've not heard that before. Yeah, no, I think the challenge there too is that we already talked about, like he could go. He's on a lot of money. You might have to rejigger that contract if you want him to stay. If the interest that was talking about him is real, I think Boa Vista in Portugal is not a team you have to go to, nor is unnamed team in Belgium. So it's not like Manchester United is calling off of.
But that's also agent games going on in the background, looking for his next move to either get a deal from DC or a much better deal. Versus are those actual legit options? I mean, I'm sure they are to an extent. I know that Andy's agent is also represent Reggie Cannon, who plays at Boa Vista, who also Reggie Cannon is not getting paid right now. So
probably not there then.
That seems like a bit of a stretch. They have some things to work out off the field, but yeah, that's going to be fascinating. How, even when you have somebody who's a little bit less mobile than Andy playing that right center back spot, is that still going to work within the style? Will that work next to Gressel? Because you have somebody like Andy that can, he's not the speedster that he was when he was younger after all of his injuries, but, he's able to clean up messes behind Gressel when Gressel's doing his thing up front, right? So, that piece of the puzzle will have to be sorted out. So
he will also be the unquestioned leader in dribbles completed for center backs at MLS.
Yes.
It will not be close. If that was a stat they kept track of on the MLS website, it would be him and then 20 other spots between them for the next person. The way I have on here to talk about the Wave, and I only am talking about this because I got a lot of comments on Twitter about this. I would say I'm anti the Wave. I don't know if you saw that. I feel like it happens every couple years, and I tweet about how bad the Wave is, and there are lots of people that agree with me because it is bad, and the people who are doing it happen to not be following DC United Soccer Podcast on Twitter, so we're not hearing from them. Because those are different groups, I think. But I think
where's our Venn diagram?
Yeah, it's a circle all the way off screen, I think, is the people who are big fans of the Wave. I think it was going on from like the 70th minute on. And I wasn't expecting it. I was hearing the far side of the stadium go crazy. I was like, oh, something exciting happened in this game. That would be great. But no, it was the Wave that started in the very early in the game and went pretty much till the end.
That's 20 minutes of staying up, getting up out of your seat every so often.
Yes, I like the rocks the wave was crashing on.
You do sound like an old man yelling at a cloud right now, though.
Yep, I don't
say
care.
that. Okay.
This is where I will put down stakes. I'm okay with that. You know, there's some things that are good about getting older and being against the wave and feeling okay and confident is one of those things. Yeah.
Well done.
I don't know if that happened a little bit. I think more in Rooney era. I don't as it goes. If you're winning by like 4 goals or losing by like 4 goals, then you do what you want. Who cares?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit unusual to, in a 1-0 game against your biggest rival, to be, not that people are tuning out. You can still watch a game of soccer and do the wave. Let's be honest. It does not require a lot. But it does feel like a little bit off, just a little bit. I'm not going to yell at the cloud.
Allow me to yell at the cloud. Carbine Cat, friend of the show, likes the wave because it makes people angry on Twitter. Because he is not yet old, where he is okay with things of this nature. But yeah, I mean, guys, let's not. Listen, if we're down by 4 next time, as this game goes, yes, 1-0 against a rival, maybe don't. But also, there were 3 shots total in the game, and the second half was
the audience.
Bad.
The audience was kind of like, it's one weird thing where it's like the audience. I could understand why they're a little bit okay. Nothing's happening. The players are kicking each other more than the ball.
Yep.
And we're just going to do the wave. But then you don't have that like sort of tension. Like if there are a bunch of, I don't think it would have been going on if you had like chances at each end, if, Red Bulls hit the post or whatever. I think it might've been, I think you need to relax a little bit and just realize that it might've been to do with the game state as well.
I'm sure that's what it was. I'm sure that all of the way people were analyzing the game state, and they're like, I don't know, the expected goals this last 20 minutes is very low.
Yeah, I know what I just said is ridiculous, and I will never be invited on here again.
The Drew Skendrich role will keep you on. The mention in the chat, I'm not going to get into this too much. Usually this is the domain of RFK Refugees is messy supporter drama. So that's sort of where we cut our teeth. So you would think this would be our story. The challenge here is I don't believe that the information is quite out on this yet. I think by the time our next episode comes around, it might be, and then we'll probably talk about it. But I believe the leader of La Banda got a 5-year ban to come to any games, and the rest of the group just left. He got his ticket scanned, and they told him, "Sorry, you're banned for 5 years." There's rumors about why that is. I'm not going to talk about those at all. But I think by next week we'll find out what that was. The vibe was off, certainly. I think that there were some drums left. I think that normally they're the drum element of the supporters group, so it was a little hollowed out for sure. It was noticeable, but not so noticeable that I was for sure something was amiss until I got on Twitter after the fact.
Yeah, my expertise does not extend to RFK, not RFK. What did I just say?
It's all right.
DC United supporter drama. So I will leave that to you. I will leave that to Ted when he returns, and you guys can break that down.
We will.
I can talk about the Drew Skendrich role.
Yeah. I mean, we will turn whatever this is into like a mini series. I
just want to call him Mr. Andy Sullivan because that is funny.
I do that too. Yeah, I was thinking about that.
I'm sure it's not an original thing, but
we're doing it on Twitter. It's fun. It feels good and bad at the same time. I feel like I don't know Drew enough but yeah, I think what I said was once Drew makes the national team, we can reassess who we're going to call what. I think that's where we're at. Or if the Drew Skendrich role becomes more ingrained in the team, and then we have to revisit just from that perspective that he's just changed the way DC United plays forever. So next game for DC United is against FC Cincinnati. I cannot imagine a better opponent, considering DC United is once again the walking wounded from similar to the beginning of the year. Running out of forwards for sure. But they also get a week's rest, so there's no midweek game this week. Hernan can, pray to the physical, the physio gods that Kevin Paredes can make it. But yeah,
your most important player is now. Is he 17 still?
18 now. I think he had a birthday recently.
Okay, happy birthday, Kevin.
Yeah, happy birthday, Kevin. I think he came on the show right after he scored his first goal and after his first national team camp, and the following game he did not play because he was injured. Or
did you ask him about the City Football Group rumors? or advise him not to make that
No,
move?
that came out the day. Yeah, it's like just keep your head down, man. Keep going. You're gonna be playing for Melbourne City in no time.
Or what about
yeah.
the one in Japan? Whatever club they own in Japan?
Yeah, what was that? What is that? Did David Villa play there also after at New York City FC?
I'm
remember
not.
now.
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think he played for the one that was owned by City Football Group. But now we're getting into the weeds. But
That's where we should be. I think we should be talking about the extended City Football Group universe.
I do think it'll be interesting to see how Kevin Paredes and Moses Nyman sort of evolve, and to a lesser, at least obvious extent, Griffin Yao and the MLS really wants to sell players approach that they're now taking. When you see teams like FC Dallas shipping off of guys who are not exactly first team players, that's not to mean that they're not good, but it'll be interesting to see if DC can keep that up in terms of actually having their academy function. I was just thinking about this beforehand too. Like, how is it that Philadelphia Union have such a better academy than DC United, at least the past few years? Obviously, there are many reasons for it. We don't need to go into whole academy
Let's get Charlie.
thing.
We'll get Charlie on. We'll have a 3-person roundtable about exactly that question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if people these days at the academy to even speak to it, but it just makes you wonder why. What exactly? Like, Brendan Aronson, Mark McKenzie, your multi-million-dollar transfers, like DC United has not been doing that, and there's a reason for it. So it'd be interesting to see how that unfolds, especially as like someone like Paredes is becoming such a key player, because I never thought he would actually sign. I met some English guy at a tournament once who was talking about how he had taken Gabriel. He was an English scout in Brazil, and he'd taken Gabriel Martinelli, who plays at Arsenal, to Manchester United 3 times. They never signed him. Anyway, he likes working on the kids that are like not here, but a little bit lower. And this is the reason for my story, is he was working with Kevin and had helped him improve and get into the U16 national team camp. This is just a couple years ago. And so I'm thinking Kevin's just going to wait till he's 18, not going to sign with DC United ever. So I was surprised even when he did it. And he's obviously continued to go up like that in terms of his ability and development. So I think disparaging Ben Olsen it's not easy. He's a nice guy, but like it makes you wonder, like Lozada, what's the Lozada effect with these guys, with Moses Nyman, with Paredes even more so, just because of the way Paredes plays and what he does well, I feel like is a good fit for the funky attacking style that they're playing. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I think that both of those players got a number of starts last year under Ben Olsen as the teams were decimated in the weird year.
Yeah.
So I think that has as much to do with their development currently as the current coach.
I mean, it could be like the coach could also be irrelevant in the factor. Obviously, it's not, but I just wonder about their stride so far, how it related is to the coach that the front office stumbled backwards into.
All right, you're Lucy Rushton now. This is my on-the-spot question here. You have 2 players that are getting a increasing international attention. As you said, DC United has no track record of being able to convert on those young talents to sell them. Chris Durkin being a kind of an exception, I guess, and Ian Harkes being kind of an exception. Ian Harkes was a free.
They released him to let him look for another club.
Durkin was a transfer. Durkin was $1 million transfer.
Andy was also a transfer way back.
Right. I guess I mean more the new regime.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you allow these players to continue to grow? So both of them now on the national team fringes, both of them now, or Kevin scoring goals now on multiple and consecutive games, team of the week. Do you allow these players to continue to grow with the hope that it only goes up from here? Or do you try to cash in early on the hype that's now around both of these players? Say you're putting more of a money on your sell-on clauses versus trying to make sure that you're getting 5, 7, 10 million or whatever you think you're going to get for both those players. What do you do for both?
I think for at least one, if you have a good deal sooner rather than later, as long as you have the sell-on fee, and it's the right opportunity for the player, then you do it. If it's a City Football Group type opportunity, and maybe it's what the player wants, obviously that's a factor too.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's like a good stepping stone club where you could also then that player will develop, let's say it's like a not Premier League or whatever, the higher, like not a France can't buy anyone. They're broke.
We're the
But-
that's our MLS. I think MLS should be Ligue 1. Like that's that's where stop talking about League of Choice. Stop talking about like that's who we are. We are now going to be the shop window for the teams that can afford our young players.
Well, I think they should be buying players from France and then selling them to other leagues too.
Arbitrage. I think that's right. We should do that. That's making deals. So
But-
all right, I think that makes sense.
I think you find the right opportunity. You don't rush to do it. I think it depends on the deals that these kids have signed. If they're on 5 to 6 year contracts and how that translates to a player's value, you also have, if like the Brandon Aronson moves work out, if you have the Tanner Tessmans, that even the eyes will be even further on the American player too. So that'll definitely help your cause as well.
I'm wondering too if there's obviously an FC Dallas halo effect for the rest of their players based on the effect, how some of their players have turned out. Do you see that as an MLS wide halo effect? Is everyone sort of seeing, well, like look at all these players? Obviously, Philly is like FC Dallas Junior as far as consistently churning out.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly helps. You can go back to Alphonso Davies, the fact that he came from an MLS team and went to a huge club like Bayern and has done so well. That helps. Even the Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic. I mean, it all comes down to honestly Pulisic and McKennie really, that they were able to, even though neither was, well, one was at FC Dallas, but neither produced transfer fees. So like that sort of opened the door because then these other teams are like, oh, American players don't totally suck these days.
Right.
So now their scouts are not just taking these trips to Florida or to these showcase events and looking for a nice 2-week vacation because they didn't tell the club that the event is only 5 days and they go for true story.
This is the guy speaking of what he knows here. I have a feeling that is a very much lived experience.
I mean, unless the scouts were lying to me, that is what one was like. Oh yeah, I told the club it was 14 days, and it was like a 6-day thing. So, because the Europeans love their sunshine. But anyways, back to the point. I'm curious to see if when not DC United can kind of ramp that up, because I think what that does is convince your owners you need to be investing in it, and it's hard, I think, for bottom line oriented people. And that's not just saying the DC United owners are bottom line oriented. It goes for all of MLS, all sports business, and the way that that can fluctuate too makes it challenging because you're like, well, we've spent $5 million in the past 2-3 years on our academy, and yet no one's been sold. You also have to probably are we producing players for our first team too? Because then you're not going out and spending that money to buy someone if you have a striker who's in your academy, and there's not a forward that comes to mind if thinking like a forward prospect for DC United's academy. Even the guys on the team right now are like sort of the best of the 02-03 group. Like there's not even like really good, like it's starting to like flip a little bit. Guys are going to bigger, but they're like, there's not even a ton of DC United Academy products like doing well in Division I men's soccer programs. Like it's
Adam Lundgaard was one that they were looking at. Jeremy Gray, obviously one that they've signed now. Before
Gray was good. He should be a player that can come in and impact the game, impact that MLS team eventually, maybe a little bit later. But Lundgaard's going to go to Clemson, and then there are guys committing to UVA for next year, and what have you. And then as I alluded, I don't know if we were recording, but the U15 looked pretty good. But obviously that's a long way to go. Those kids were born in 2006 to make you feel old again.
Jesus. How's Brian Kao doing is he at Wolfsburg U19s or something?
He was doing well, but it's kind of a black hole right now. Like the news that is available, and I haven't checked in yet as a season.
Which then also reminds me of Eric Williamson, which is now becoming much more of the one that got away here for DC United. Less a Mikey Seaton, more a a player that you're actually is like, shit, we may have given up a little bit early on this one. That was a playing time question. If I recall correctly, that was the conversation. I think it was Goff that had the source close to the player, but as DC United were looking at signing him to a deal, there was no sort of promises of time in the midfield from Ben Olsen and the club. And he said, all right, fine, I'll go to a better team. I'll go to Portland. And then
the thing is, though, he didn't play for like a few years
he was playing Portland too for a little bit, I think.
And he went on loan to the Portuguese team that plays Santa Clara. Do you remember? You probably don't remember that. So he went on loan for like half a year to a team that plays in the Portuguese league, but they're like on this like tiny island group that's like pretty far away. I think it's called Santa Clara, the club. I'm not sure what the islands are called, but it seemed like he was just ready for a vacation and ready to like give up on the whole soccer thing. And then now he's on the national team and playing pretty well.
It worked out for him.
It did not work out for DC United as
It
well.
did not. Big whiff. Big whiff there. I think this is a question for you. How much do you still remember your MLS roster machinations? Probably not as well. How much, this is from Gregory on Twitch, how much do $1 million transfers help in a world with Garber bucks? With players you produce out of your academy, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, you get all that. From what I know is you get all the allocation money from a transfer. Like you get to max out your, whereas you only get a certain percentage if it's like a player you have purchased. Like the Miguel Almiron transfer, for example, they had brought him in, they sold him to Newcastle, and they did not get that full allocation. Whereas you get the full hit if you sell an academy player, which is for one of the tweaks they made because teams were like, this is stupid. If I'm going to, what's my incentive to sign, like to let this player go if I'm going to have to spend more to then bring, whether it's allocation money or real money, like I'm gonna have to spend more money to bring in a replacement if like I have an 18, 19-year-old starter, right?
Right.
So that was part of the whole thing they're trying to change.
Doug on Twitter also says we were talking about the high points of the development side of MLS. He's saying he loathes to say it, but Red Bull has become a nice talent factory. Clark looked like the real deal. It was interesting that he made it back in time to start and play in that game. He did not factor in. He was pretty anonymous for that game.
He's still an inconsistent player, but what's interesting about Clark is that he's not as technically a Red Bull product. He's a Minnesota native who was playing in Minnesota and then moved to the Barca Academy in Arizona. I actually saw him play there in December 2019, and then he was like, I want to be pro. And hilariously, when Red Bull signed him, they had to give Minnesota United, which didn't have an academy for his age group, some like fake money, Garber money. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was, this league can be so stupid sometimes.
The good MLS,
because I think that
uncut MLS.
I think you could really throw things up, just throw everything open. Kids can sign wherever you can turn MLS academies into recruiting centers like Division I college, like Division I athletics. I mean, you got to regulate it a little bit so it doesn't get too crazy. But, if there's like a ton of good players in LA that the Galaxy Academy isn't looking at, shouldn't Portland be able to like grab some of the 10 to 20 guys and give them opportunities or something like that? So
I agree.
Anyway,
we'll pass that along till the league
we're
offices.
We're going out
stuff.
there.
That's what we're going for a walk this episode. I think that'll wrap the DC United section of this podcast. So that was 3 points. I believe they were before the game. They were one spot above Red Bull in the standings. So I believe now they're continue to be at least one spot. I haven't looked at the standings since the game, but
still outside of the playoff picture, but
close to the playoff picture.
Close.
Not quite there. Plenty of games to play still. And with the United States going to the next round in the Gold Cup, that's a little bit longer before Paul will be able to return. Donovan Pines also apparently picked up an injury, which is not great. Not fantastic from a center back depth perspective when he was to return. But the fact that Birnbaum did not re-snap his ankle ligaments in Philadelphia and he was able to actually come back and play the last 5 minutes in the New York game makes me a little bit less concerned about Donovan not being able to immediately jump back in the lineup.
Well, they'll lose the guitar, so he'll be back soon enough.
Yeah, that's true, man. That's a whole podcast right there.
Yeah.
How they're there, how they're doing. It's all great. Go ahead.
I think they played at the what's the CONMEBOL? What's the Copa America too this year? Apparently.
Do they?
Qatar did already.
Oh, they didn't place as well. I don't think that they dominated this as well. Can't believe
I
that.
could be wrong about that, but I heard that and I was like, wait a second, really? They're doing their whole like world tour before the World Cup where
they're making sure that they get out of the group stage. That is all that this is about. They will play anybody anywhere on the moon to make sure that they're ready to not get
just
out of the group stage.
kick us some money from Qatar Airways and you get an invite.
You could play any tournament. The Capital Cup should have been a great spot for Qatar to play. I don't know why DC United didn't call Emirates Airlines. Washington Spirit played also same day, same time. Guys, stop doing this, please. Please don't do this anymore.
Did you watch the game on your phone?
No, I did not.
While you're at the,
I did not. I did have. It was funny because I have the Wi-Fi password for the press box. So I could have done it. I did not. I had to watch it after like a big dummy. But guys, stop doing this, please. But 2-0 win against Racing Louisville, which is the reverse of the score of the game that they previously played Louisville. They lost. That was their first loss of the season. But goals for Ashley Hatch and Sam Staub. Ashley Hatch. Golden Boot leader so far right now. I believe she's got 7 goals, I think is the number. I'm very concerned that every game she seems to have some sort of concussion symptoms or has to be evaluated for concussion. That does not seem sustainable for a full NWSL season. So I hope that they're able to sort that out. But her goal was pretty impressive. Great tackle by Ashley
Good
Sanchez.
finish.
Wins possession in the midfield. Tara McKeown gets her first assist, first time she's been on the score sheet at all. And Ashley looked like she was going to push it too far towards the end line, sort of took away her angle, but was able to push it far post past the Racing Louisville goalkeeper. Louisville, I know that Travis watched some of this game, but Louisville looked pretty dangerous to me. As far as if you look at the stats, the way they broke down, pretty evenly matched, despite I think they were even on shots or very close. The Spirit had the better opportunities. Aubrey Bledsoe had a number of saves that she was able to make without moving. So that's you like to see that if you're the Spirit, but they looked a lot better than when I've seen them play earlier in the year. They look very good for an expansion side that spent their biggest chits in the expansion draft on 2 players that are never going to play for them, which is Christian Press and Tobin Heath never going to come. Big old swinging a miss there. Lit $150,000 of allocation money on fire on a bet that's not going to pay off.
It's fake money, so it's no worries.
That's true.
I do want to talk about that Ashley Sanchez tackle. That was like it was a Hernan Lozada pressing up high the pitch. And I think it's another player who I watched as a teenager, Ashley Sanchez. It's good to see her doing well in NWSL because I was a little bit worried if she'd get, I don't want to say bullied, but smaller framed players sometimes can struggle in women's soccer in this country just because of the way some teams play and just a reliance on physicality and athleticism, which I know it's cliche to throw that out there, but Sanchez is a very skilled player, and I'm glad that she's becoming a two-way menace from when I flip on Spirit games. And I think the attackers they have, Trinity Rodman, Sanchez, McEwen, Ashley Hatch, it can be a very exciting team going forward for sure.
Yeah, actually Sanchez has been a fouls committed magnet at some games when teams sort of decide they're going to key in on her. They've been able to mark her out of never full games. I think that they're able to usually control the game for 45 minutes, mark her out of the game, push the ball to the wings so she doesn't get a chance to get on it. But inevitably in every game she's played this season, there's been about at least a 20 to 30 minute stretch where she takes the game over. And it's really exciting to watch from the perspective of a fan because it's just there's not really an answer for her. You're right that she's physically, I don't want to say outclassed, but she's smaller than most of the center backs she's going against or trying to dribble past, but she is able to evade most of them and as really, I think her mentality has really helped her a lot. I think she is.
Yeah, there was definitely knowing the kind of player she is. That was a thought of something I was going to be watching, and so far she's like chucked that out the window and said, "No, I can handle this." She looks more ready than I thought she would be, and obviously, she turned pro last year, right?
Last year was her first season. Yep.
Yeah, and your first pro season is this pseudo super weird year, and then now you're coming in and taking a big step forward. I'm curious to see if you ever get looks from the national team with the way that works. It's just always impossible to know if you're not Megan Rapinoe or the big name players. Like, will they give kid players like that looks? So it'll be interesting to see post Olympics if there are any shifts in players like Sanchez and Rodman and, heck, maybe even Ashley Hatch gets a look if they keep
Yeah.
playing like this. Obviously, got to be
Yeah.
consistent.
That Ashley asked sort of the U.S. setup at the beginning of the season what they needed to see more from her, and they're like, just score more goals. Particularly if you could do that at the national team level, that would make it even easier for us to call you back again. So I told her it was very much the first job out of college requiring experience situation, but she's been clinical this year. Like I said, I just hope she can stay on the field. I hope she's not doing herself any disservice by making herself available. For the rest of the game, did you happen to see the flip throw in the 42nd minute?
The flip throw.
Yeah. How often are you seeing that youth tournament still? I know when I was growing up, that was like a thing that was cool. So people were still trying it a lot. Is that in the bag for a lot of youth teams?
You see it every so often. There was a guy at the University of Washington that was he had a really good flip throw like 4 or 5 years ago. Like this flip throw did not impress me because it did not clear the first defender.
It did result in a corner, but it was I think more of a mess.
I was like,
than
really? Is that what I think I was at a tournament in the end of July and I did see 1 or 2, I believe, but it's not. Honestly, at this point, players can just throw the ball far enough that you don't need to flip. Like you can get the ball like close enough between the 6-yard box and the penalty, and then you have somebody in the front and you head it on. Like, I don't know why they didn't have a player closer. Like, why did Louisville not have a player like coming towards the ball at least to flick it on? Right. That's the whole point of it.
It's like she didn't tell him that was coming. It's like that was a surprise to the team.
But I feel like you should.
I do too. I think that's definitely a team decision. Lauren Millet, I think, was the one who did. I think that's something you gotta, or Milliet, I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
I do think that there was it was an interesting contrast, like this game and because I did watch, I believe it was the first matchup between these two teams. Have they just played twice?
Yes.
And I feel like the Spirit were like cutting them to pieces in the first game, but then couldn't finish and then gave up a couple goals. And so not that Louisville was that good. Offensively, obviously they created chances, but it was an interesting contrast that the results kind of flipped a little bit. Even though I feel like the Spirit were still deserved winners. I don't want to come across like I was saying, Louisville deserved to win or anything like that. But
they were not clinical. They were creating opportunities, but they were not being very precise with them. The lead should have doubled in the 47th minute. Robin and Sanchez had a 2v1. Great defending by local product Emily Fox, I believe, is from Loudon. She's from Northern Virginia, I believe.
Yeah, you're correct.
Great play to stop that. The announcer was like, "Those are the two players you do not want to see running down on you in a 2v1," and
true.
And they are correct. As somebody watching it from the other end, I was like, "Man, that's not." But they were able to keep that one out. They were not, however, able to keep out Sam Staub in the 58th minute, fresh off having her red card rescinded. That red card was wild. I'm not sure if you saw that play at the previous game at Segra where the referee.
I missed it. I did see the stories about how the red card was rescinded, but I did not actually see the play itself.
Yes, so it was a foul outside the box. That was a dog so that they gave to Paige Nielsen, and then they said, "Oops, it wasn't actually Paige, it was Sam." And then so like 3 minutes later, they finally were able to go on with play, but they got that rescinded because it was not actually a dog so, because literally it could have given it to two different players since she actually did. It could have given it to either one of them because they were both there and there was not an opportunity to go on goal. They got that rescinded. Luckily, that's great because the Spirit are very short on defenders at the moment. Was able to score off a corner. I believe it was Taylor Aylmer. She's new. I don't know her. This is her first game, so I'm not going to feel too bad about not knowing her pronunciation guide yet. But this is her first. There were like 6 players, national team replacement players, that are basically making up most of the bench now. So that's basically the second half. You become sort of like who is this person? I don't know this person, but was able to score. That was great. Great revenge for her. Mickey Owen almost gets her first goal in the 68th minute. Again, there were some opportunities for Louisville the rest of the game, but none really concerning the Spirit. They're in a good position for. I believe they're now in third. I don't want to make sure that's right before I say it. I think they're in third. The top. 6,
very close. I checked.
The top 6 roles are like within 3 points, 4 points of each other. It's very, very dense at the top of the league. It's basically the entire league, and then Kansas City is how the standings appear to be.
The Spirit are fascinating to me, and the NWSL, because we talk about development in the men's side, but seeing players like Trinity Rodman, lesser so Ashley Sanchez, look to leave school early. People keep asking me if that's going to be a trend. Not keep asking me. Not a lot of people ask.
Literally hundreds of people every day ask Travis about this question.
No, a few people have asked me. I should say it that way. That is a little more accurate. If that is a trend, we will see more in the women's game, and I tend to not think it'll be. I feel like some players will feel like they need to push themselves. The national team dynamic obviously comes into play. If you can get a national team contract like Tierna Davidson did and Kat Macario, that will push players because they can get access to not. Yeah, I know that salaries are going up in NWSL, but
certainly not skipping
like if you're skipping your fourth year of scholarship money and it's your first year of a full ride, then it's hard to see that equating itself. But
particularly if you're going to like Stanford or Duke or any program where your college degree is innately going to make you more money than 5 years of your playing salary. So
right,
something to think about there.
Basically the league's capacity to develop these players is what I was on about. Especially the Spirit are getting their second crack at like a attacking teenage talent that went to college for about 3 months and then decided, hey, college isn't for me, and wanted to go pro. So I think Rodman early returns are much further along than Malpew was able to achieve around here.
Right. Here's an idea. Tell me why this is a horrible idea. What
It's
if
a horrible idea.
The United States petitions FIFA to allow the U.S. women to field a U.S. 2 of like the next rung down, and have them enter in all the other CONCACAF tournaments, have them just basically like Barcelona B.
Yeah.
But just allow like Andy Sullivan to be the starter on USA 2 instead of because I feel like they have certainly enough depth to these players that have just no hope. We talked about Ashley Hatch. Like, it's going to be tough sledding. She could win the Golden Boot this year. She could win it next year.
That's what makes me like, I don't want to say annoyed, but it's just sort of like, how is there an answer for that where these players can be rewarded for their club form and actually get onto the national team? Not to say they should be given a spot, but it's just a little bit weird when some players like just don't play in club soccer and then, oh yeah, you're in the national team. And then players like killing it.
I'm telling you, this is the fix.
Yeah.
That or start going to Martinique, like all the countries that are trying to like really find, like cousins of cousins of cousins to nationalize, like maybe start threatening that, because I feel like there are too many good players that are never going to get that opportunity. And NWSL does not have the economic opportunity for players who are not in that tier to make it a long-term career choice. They're doing a lot, Tori Huster and the the Players Association,
NWSLPA.
Yes, that was probably an easy acronym that should have figured out. I would have gotten there eventually. But they're doing work on sort of trying to limit or try to at least bring the conversation around all the side hustle these players are having to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, that obviously they're not going to do USA 2. This is a great idea. That's not going to happen. But I'm just saying there's not enough money to make it worth most of these players to really stick it out. And it's every time I see a player who is retiring at 24 or 25, it bums me out. It happens in the men's game a lot too, but those are like usually, I think I had Felipe on forever ago. He's like, those are the guys who went to Notre Dame that had a finance degree and like,
well, that's what I forgot to crack about Drew Skundrich, that it's kind of a miracle he's still playing, right?
Particularly on USL salary for 2 years. He's those loans, maybe I forget how long until they kick in. I think he was on scholarship. He doesn't have to worry about that. At least maybe that's
at least some scholarship, probably not a full ride, maybe by the end, but a lot of his Stanford teammates have actually retired at that mid-20s age. Tomas Hilliard Arce,
LA Galaxy 2 legend. I believe.
But he's probably like going. I remember hearing when Harry Shipp, I was covering the Final Four when Harry Shipp was at Notre Dame, and he was like, his starting salary out of school was going to be higher than the homegrown deal that he signed. Obviously, he went on to make a bit more money, but just to give people a snapshot.
Who was the guy who played in Montreal, I think from Princeton, scored the goal in the Champions League and then blew his knee up? Remember that guy?
Yeah, I do. I don't remember his name.
There's
Cameron Porter.
That's right. You got it. Look at that. It was in there. It was knocking around. There was some synapses firing. There's a lot of players that have come from elite universities that have a couple years in MLS, and then you can find them on LinkedIn, and they are invariably like financial advisors. They work at JP Morgan Chase, so it's all right. It all works out for them. They maybe didn't make the men's national team, but
well, even someone like Griffin Yao, who I was like, oh man, kid should have gone to school, but then you pull up his roster, like number and or his what was it called, like the MLSPA salary. That's the number. That's the word I'm looking for.
the money he gets paid. Yes,
the money,
the number,
the money he is making, I believe, is well over six figures. So it's like, okay,
makes sense.
If you get that for 4 or 5 years, you're covering, and let's say he was offered a 50% to 75% ride somewhere, he'll be okay because he's making that money. And it's like, okay, you take that risk and you get paid at least. So
can you self-fund a 529? I'm not sure. I feel like someone should tell Griffin. I was talking to Jeremy Gray about it. He was like, oh, I was thinking about college. And I was like, yeah, but college isn't going anywhere. You can do this for a little bit. It's like, it's true. I could go back. So if you could I feel like if you are this is another. So USA 2 is my one idea. Second idea, MLS clubs that are signing kids under 18 years old have to start a 529 and fund it at the max for the years that they're playing. They don't have to give them a full amount, but they've got to kick in some money towards because most of these kids are not going to make MLS careers out of bet. Most of them are going to be, 2-3 years in and out. I feel like that's the homegrown record.
Most of these guys are like 15, 16. They're signing like 4 or 5 year deals at least. So
most of them won't see them out. Most of them are not. They're going to get cut before the end of that.
That's true. Well, you still get at least 3 of that guaranteed. But I do think there is a portion without looking. I know they're working to do that to give kids the incentive to not play college soccer, basically.
Well, good. So we'll call that out. We'll say that they adopted that.
They have things with Southern New Hampshire.
True.
Although it's
virtually,
like
yes.
Southern New Hampshire, Stanford, UVA, Notre Dame. Like that's where it becomes Georgetown. Like
Southern New Hampshire University's soccer team, though, would be very good if they could figure out a way.
They do have. The funny thing is, they do have an actual soccer team at their actual school. Yeah.
That's amazing. I think the number of players who I think Chris Seitz has like 5 MBAs through them. I think a lot of the players, they just went crazy. Like, these are free. I'll do these. That's no problem. I'll get all these degrees. That's no problem. It's like the people with it was a good opportunity. A good partnership. I think NWSL started that too recently this year.
Yes.
They have a new online partner for that thing. The more of that they can do, there's only so much they're going to be able to do on salary.
Because some of these players, even in NWSL, you play your 4 seasons of soccer, you leave before your degree is done for a lot of these players. So, it's something they should always try to do.
I have been informed by producer Brian that we are reaching the 90-minute mark, which is substantially more than I thought we were going to get. I apologize, listeners, viewers, if any of those of you stuck us out on the actual live viewing perspective. I apologize for living in a tornado. It's never happened. I've been in this house since 2014. This has never happened. So great timing. Really appreciate that. Travis, let's tell people, the camera angle did not really give your shirt the advertising angle that we were hoping, but tell people where they can find your great work.
Our website is topdrawsoccer.com, covering college, club, and sort of elite non-professional soccer, although some professionals, as long as they remain of a certain age.
No old people. That's as long as you're not old, we'll talk about you on Top Drawer Soccer. We'll have extra episodes this week. Ted obviously on vacation, hopefully enjoying himself at the beach. We will have Devin McTavish, color man for DC United on this week. I'm not sure when it'll be released. So just, make sure you're on DC United or rfkrefugees.com/subscribe. And then it'll just magically appear whatever day we decide to do it. And we might have a preview for next week up. Things get a little squirmy when 1/3 of the show is hanging out by the beach drinking Mai Tai. So we were able to do it today. Travis, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coining the Drew Skundrich role and for indulging my USA 2 idea. And we will be back at some point. Vamos.